I never imagined a stack of papers could feel heavier than a cinder block. 2 weeks ago, that envelope slid under my front door with the quiet menace of a snake in the grass. My heart lurched when I saw her name scrawled across the front, my ex-wife's name. I knew before I even peeked inside what it would be: a restraining order, the court date, an instruction to stay 30 feet away from her and anywhere she might be, a demand that I prove I'm not the man she still seems to think I am. I spent the next 14 days floating through my own life as if I were watching from somewhere above my head. Every door I approached felt like a portal I shouldn't cross. The grocery store aisle became a minefield of potential encounters. Taking our dog to the park? Unthinkable. Even walking past our old neighborhood triggered a flutter of panic. Each night, I replayed our last conversation in my mind, searching for the moment when I should have seen this coming. I never saw it. In hindsight, maybe that was my fault. I sit in my car on the courthouse curb this morning, hands wrapped around a paper cup of black coffee so hot it burns the skin on my palms. The courthouse looms ahead, a gray monolith of stone pillars and tinted windows that mirror everyone's insecurities back at them. I stare at my reflection in the glass. My hair's longer than usual. I haven't shaved in days. I look tired, hollowed out. Is that how she sees me now? Tired, hollowed. I slide the coffee to my passenger seat and breathe deep. In a few minutes, I'll be inside, being accused of wrongdoing. I don't fully understand. She didn't outline specifics in her filing, just that she feared for her safety. Fear is a powerful currency in family court. My lawyer insists that fear alone doesn't win a restraining order. You need evidence, but I'm not sure evidence matters when the judge has a folder filled with allegations and a victim in the witness box. I close my eyes and quietly rehearse my defense. Speak calmly. Be factual. Don't lose control. Explain why I was at her house that night, to return her grandmother's photo album, nothing more. But she'll say I screamed at her, that I threatened her. I didn't. My voice may have cracked. My face may have been red. I'm guilty of passion, but not of violence. The security scanner clicks behind me, and I step through, shoes squeaking on the marble floor. The guard glances at my name on his screen, then waves me through. I glance at the hallway clock. 9:42. My hearing is at 10. Perfect timing. I head to the metal benches where other people wait, their expressions a dull gradient between nervousness and resignation. A young woman next to me clutches a folder bulging with paperwork. A man across the aisle keeps checking his phone. I wonder if either of them is here for a restraining order too. What were their stories? My lawyer Peter strides in gray suit, impeccably pressed, hair combed back like I imagine a seasoned barrister should be. He's tall, confident. I envy that confidence. He fishes a sheaf of papers from his briefcase and gives me a nod. Ready? He whispers. I nod back, though I'm not sure what ready even means anymore. We stand and follow the bailiff down a labyrinth of corridors, past doors labeled with numbers that mean almost nothing until today. We reach courtroom 3B. The judge's door swings open and we slip inside. Wood-paneled walls, an American flag in the corner, the judge seated high on her bench like an altar. Her face is stern, framed by the black robe she wears like armor. She glances down at her notes. I catch her eye briefly. Her gaze is polite but distant, as though she's reviewing a crossword puzzle in her head, waiting for words to fill in. My stomach twists. Across the room I see her, my ex sitting at a long table beside her attorney. Her hair is pulled back into a tight ponytail. She's wearing glasses that give her an academic look, though her expression is anything but scholarly. Her shoulders are tight, her arms crossed. She looks smaller than she used to, but her presence fills the room. When our eyes meet for a moment, she looks away, gaze fixed on the papers in front of her. I swallow. Peter gives me a quick pat on the shoulder. Ease into it. Let her lay out her case first. The judge clears her throat. Court is now in session. We're here to consider the application for a protective order filed by Miss Harper against Mr. Grant. She looks at Miss Harper's attorney. Counselor? The attorney stands, a tall woman with silver hair, and addresses the bench. Your Honor, my client alleges that on March 5th, the respondent came to her residence unannounced, banged on the door, and threatened her with retaliation if she did not stop garbage-talking him. She feared for her safety and that of her children. We submit that this constitutes an act of domestic violence, warranting a restraining order under Statute 3456-103. My heart pounds. Retaliation, garbage talking, my memory of that night is a jumble. I can recall heated words. I can recall slamming the car door in frustration. But retaliation? Threats? Not me. The judge gestures to my ex. Miss Harper, would you please testify to these events? She stands, angle of light catching her cheekbones. Her voice is steady, controlled. On March 5th, I came home from work. I was anxious. I thought I'd left my kids with our nanny. But when I pulled into the driveway, I saw their toys scattered on the porch. She pauses. I knocked and rang the bell. No answer. I felt uneasy. I called my mom. While I was on the phone, I heard shouting. It was him, Charles, outside the front window. He was pacing and yelling into his phone, not at my mother. Then he saw me, and I swear, court, he slammed his fist against the door and screamed, "You think you can make me look like a fool and get away with it? I'll show you what happens to fools." The courtroom is silent enough that I can hear her words like echoes in my skull. I felt scared, she continues. He's always been so impulsive. I didn't know what he might do next. The judge nods and motions her to sit. Then she turns to me. Mr. Grant, is there anything you wish to say about these allegations? My throat is dry. I stand, trying to project calm. Your Honor, I acknowledge there was tension that day. We had argued on the phone earlier in the evening about finances. I carried that anger with me. When I got to her house, I admit I was frustrated. I may have raised my voice at the door. I glanced toward my ex, who watches me impassively. But I did not damage property, and I did not threaten retaliation. I would never harm her or our children. Mr. Grant, the judge says softly, this is a serious matter. The court must consider the safety of the petitioner. I nod. Behind me, Peter taps his pen. He whispers, we'll introduce evidence that shows your visit was brief and that you never tried to force entry. And we have witness statements about your behavior. He slips a stapled packet to the bailiff. The bailiff hands it to the judge, who scans the pages. As the judge reviews, my ex's attorney rises again. Your Honor, in addition to the petition, we have provided call logs showing he called me 47 times that evening, left urgent messages, and even sent texts with phrases like, "You'll regret this." When someone uses language like that, especially after a volatile argument, it's reasonable to fear for personal safety. My throat closes up. 47 calls. Regret this. The words swirl in my head. I must have sounded unhinged, desperate. It wasn't threats, just a man who couldn't let go. I open my mouth to explain, but the judge cuts me off. I've read the logs. Counsel for the respondent. Peter stands. Your Honor, most of those calls were in the span of half an hour. Mr. Grant was worried about his children. He wanted confirmation they were safe. A parent's paranoia is not domestic violence. The judge nods again, head tilted. I understand. This is not a criminal trial, Mr. Grant. I must decide whether there's a reasonable fear. She pauses, tapping her pen. I'm inclined to grant a temporary order until I can review more evidence. Then I will schedule a full hearing in 30 days. She glances at me. Until then, you must maintain a distance of 50 yards from Miss Harper's residence, place of employment, and any location where she might reasonably be found. My chest collapses. A 50-yard bubble around her means I can't visit my kids at soccer practice, can't pick up their artwork from school. I swallow bile. Your Honor, please. The judge lifts a hand. Order granted. She raps her gavel. Court is adjourned. The gavel's echo feels like final judgment. I turn to Peter. He's giving me a look that says, we'll fight this, but the temporary order still hurts. My ex stands, gathers her papers, and heads for the door without a backward glance. Not a flicker of relief or apology. Just the steady clack of her heels on the tile. I feel every eye in the courtroom on me. The other litigants, the staff, even some curious onlookers. I nod to Peter and follow him out. Outside, the late morning sun feels gaudy, unmoved by my humiliation. We find a quiet hallway. Peter leans against the wall. We have 30 days to prepare. Depositions, witness statements, your neighbor across the street who saw you leave the porch will help. But listen, Charles. Emotional distress isn't violence. We'll argue that. He pauses, voice softening. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but this is our opening gambit. Keep your head clear. I nod, but my mind is spinning. 30 days. A month of staring at court notices, juggling childcare through lawyers, avoiding my own children's ball games. A restraining order feels like a weapon designed to cut me out of my own life. I push off the wall and head back into the courtroom, heart heavy. As I pass the bench, I catch the judge's eye again. There's something unreadable in her gaze. A flicker of curiosity, impatience. I realize then that she's waiting for one more thing from me, something I hadn't expected to bring evidence of my own. In my jacket pocket, safely tucked beneath a pad of paper, I feel the envelope. It's plain manila, sealed with red wax. Inside is a collection of letters, handwritten pages from my ex, from years ago when we were madly in love. Letters she wrote in her neat script, full of hope and laughter, thanking me for the simplest moments: Tuesday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon walks, late night whispers in the dark. Letters that prove the bond we once shared. Letters she couldn't have written to a man she feared. I glance at the bailiff, who's stacking chairs. I approach the bench once more, my steps loud in the silence. The judge looks up. "Your Honor," I say, voice firmer than before. "I have something I'd like you to consider before finalizing this order." She regards me coolly. "Mr. Grant." I extend the envelope toward her, hand trembling just slightly. "These are letters my ex-wife wrote me over the first 5 years of our marriage. They speak to the relationship we had, the love and trust she once placed in me. I believe they're relevant to show this petition comes from anger, not fear." The judge's brow arches. My ex-liar rises, shock flickering across her face. My ex pauses in the doorway as if time itself has stopped. The hush in the courtroom deepens to a vacuum. The judge takes the envelope. "I will admit these into evidence," she says softly. "We will review them in camera, meaning privately, away from the parties, to determine their relevance." I exhale, a rush of relief and dread. Relief that someone will read our history. Dread at how those words might hurt her, now so estranged. My ex's face is a mask, her eyes glistening, but whether with anger or regret, I cannot tell. As the bailiff takes the envelope from the judge's hand and places it into the official file, an electric tension crackles through the room. All the chatter of lawyers stops. The judge glances at me one last time, then taps her pen. Court stands adjourned, and with that, the gavel falls again. I stand there, heart drumming, while Peter murmurs, "That was bold." My ex turns and leaves without a word. I follow, my legs unsteady. Outside, the corridor seems longer than before. I lean against the cool marble wall outside the courtroom, the envelope's weight gone, but its impact resonating in every beat of my heart. I don't know what those letters will reveal, how she'll feel reading her intimate thoughts now under oath, how the judge will judge our past. But I do know this: I refuse to go quietly. I chose to fight with the only thing I had left, her own words. And when the doors swing open, I step out into the bright hallway, ready to face whatever comes next. Because some battles aren't won by silence. They're won by daring to show the truth, even when it hurts. And that envelope, it's just the beginning. The morning of the full hearing arrived cold and gray, as though the weather itself were bracing for another confrontation. I sat in the back of the courtroom, heart in my throat, watching lawyers scurry past in dark suits, stacks of files clutched under their arms. Peter had insisted we arrive early. He felt psychologically advantageous. So I nursed a lukewarm coffee beneath a faded George Washington portrait and tried to steady my breathing. Across the aisle, I spotted her, my ex-wife, seated beside her attorney. She looked smaller still, shoulders drawn in, as though she'd expected this day to break her. For a moment I wondered whether I should feel triumph at her discomfort. But victory tasted hollow. These walls held more than legal verdicts. They trapped every fear, shame, and still warm ache of our shared past. When the bailiff called the court to order, every breath seemed to echo. The judge, a stern woman, but not unkind, peered down from her bench. "We're here on the matter of Harper v. Grant. We will hear argument on the respondent's motion to dissolve the temporary restraining order." She turned to me. "Mr. Grant, you may proceed." Peter rose first, voice calm, assured. He recounted the timeline: my ex's petition, the temporary order, then the envelope of letters I'd given the court. His rhetoric was precise. "Your Honor, these letters demonstrate the petitioner's prior affectionate intent toward Mr. Grant. They undermine the assertion of reasonable fear, revealing instead a pattern of trust betrayed by haste and resentment." He laid photocopies before the judge, then rested. Next, my ex's attorney stood. She spoke more softly, carefully. "Your Honor, while these letters evince a loving relationship once, they do not speak to the petitioner's present state of mind. One can love and still fear." She glanced at my ex, then back to the bench. The events of March 5th, as testified, and supported by call logs and witness statements, justify the protective order's continuance to ensure safety. I clenched my hands under the table. My throat went dry. What if the judge judged her fear greater than her former love? When the attorney sat, the judge nodded and turned to my ex. Miss Harper, would you still feel at risk should this order be lifted? My ex rose, shoulders trembling. I recognized that tremor. My own reflection mirrored it every time I faced her. Your Honor, she began, voice wavering. I was angry when I filed this, angry that my Charles didn't listen to me, didn't respect my boundaries. I was hurt. She paused, swallowing. Reading those letters again, I remembered who he used to be, who we used to be. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd misread his intentions. But then, I still feel unsafe. In the moment, I felt he could snap, that years of unspoken disappointments might erupt. A hush fell. I caught Peter's eye. He gave a slight nod, invitation to speak. My heart hammered as I stood. Your Honor, I said, voice trembling at first, then firm. I understand her feelings. I never meant to terrify her. I was in pain too, bitter about losing my family, ashamed of how I reacted. But I've spent these weeks reflecting, getting counseling, learning to manage my anger. I'm not the man I was that night, and I will not put her, or our children, through that fear again. I swallowed. I love my children, I added, voice catching. I've been told there are 47 calls that night. Yes, I panicked. I couldn't bear the thought something was wrong with them. I know it looked desperate, but that desperation was for their safety, not my ego. My ex's eyes flicked to the back of the room, where our children's school teacher sat as a character witness. I'd asked her to testify about my parenting. She leaned forward now, and I nodded gratefully. The judge steepled her fingers. Miss Thompson, she addressed my teacher. You are here to speak on Mr. Grant's behalf. The teacher stood, calm and composed. Your Honor, I've known Mr. Grant for 5 years. He volunteers at the school, organizes reading groups, and never displays aggression. He communicates with parents respectfully, even under stress. I do not believe he poses a threat. She met my ex's gaze. I've also spoken to your children. They love their father and want him in their lives. They feel scared by this order too. I felt a lump in my throat. The judge flipped through her notes. Everyone waited. Finally, she spoke. This court must weigh the petitioner's fear against the respondent's right to parental contact. I find that while Miss Harper's distress is genuine, Mr. Grant's submission of the letters, participation in counseling, and character testimony mitigate the risk. The temporary restraining order will be dissolved effective immediately, with the following conditions to protect all parties. Mr. Grant shall complete an anger management program and maintain supervised visitation until the program concludes. The petitioner may request further relief if necessary. A collective exhale rippled through the room. Peter exhaled behind me, and I let my knees buckle slightly before catching myself. My ex sank back into her chair, eyes wet but unreadable. No applause, no cheers, just the muted shuffle of papers. That afternoon, we emerged into a courtyard, bathed in April sunshine. The contrast with that gray courtroom felt impossible. My ex stood a few feet away, boxed by the columns like a portrait. I'd rehearsed so many things to say, but my throat still felt raw. She glanced at me. Thank you, she whispered, as though cautioning herself. For the letters, for everything you said. I nodded. I'm sorry for the fear I caused. My voice cracked. I never wanted to scare you. Her shoulders relaxed for the first time.
I knew.
She looked toward a row of orange blossoms lining the walkway. I misinterpreted so much anger as hatred, when it was just pain. We hurt each other. Pain we both carried, I said gently. But I want to be better for them, for us, even if it's just as co-parents. She met my eyes. The tension between us trembled, unresolved, but shifting. I'd like to start over, she said, tone careful. Not as husband and wife, but as partners in this new life. She smiled, small and fragile, and maybe in time see who we become. I smiled back, relief washing over me like rain. Partners, I agreed. Let's take it one step at a time. We walked out together. No awkward distance, no circle of miles between us, just two parents bound by history and hope. As we reached the parking lot, I spotted my kids tumbling out of the car, faces bright with relief to see me. Their arms flung around my legs, little bodies full of energy and laughter. My ex watched them, and I reached for her hand. "They're excited," I said. "They always will be," she replied. I lifted one daughter and swung her around, her giggles echoed through the lot. My son raced circles, shrieking, "Dad, catch me," and I did. We loved each other fiercely, imperfectly, like any family recovering from fractures. Later, she and I sat on the tailgate of her truck, sharing a forgotten picnic of sandwiches and apple slices, watching our children chase a frisbee. We talked, not about the order, the letters, or the judge's ruling, but about our kids, their school projects, their silly jokes, their dreams of building secret tree houses. Our conversation felt real, unforced, and for the first time in months, I understood how we could step forward together, separately linked by love. As dusk approached, we packed up. I loaded the kids into my car for the weekend visits we'd arranged, supervised until I completed my program. My ex lingered, silent for a moment, then reached into her pocket and handed me a small slip of paper. I unfolded it. On it, in her neat handwriting, was a single line, "Thank you for fighting the right fight." My heart stuttered. I looked up. She was already turning away, closing her truck door. But before she could drive off, I called after her. "Do you want to grab coffee tomorrow? Just talk?" She paused, hand on the handle. She turned slowly, eyes soft. "I'd like that," she said. As she drove away into the pink-tinged horizon, I watched her taillights fade, feeling something I thought I'd lost, hope. The road ahead wouldn't be smooth. We'd both have setbacks, counsel's warnings, therapy appointments, and more excruciating conversations. But the bond we nearly lost had proven itself resilient. And sometimes, the fiercest battles forge the strongest connections. I climbed into my car, the kids chattering happily in the back. I glanced at that slip of paper on the passenger seat, then at the twin moon reflections on the windshield. For the first time in months, I believed in second chances, practice or not, and in the places where love, regret, and redemption overlap.